Students, today we are going to learn how to use the Polygonal Lasso tool. We're also going to use as, I guess, the platform upon which we learn that stuff, some images that'll help us create an art that lets us discuss the idea of Aboriginal land claims or anybody's land claims. The Polygonal Lasso tool is located underneath, nested within the Lasso tool. You can see it here under Polygonal Lasso tool. Again, the shortcut is L, and this one lets you create straight lines in your selection. In order to get started, you need to open up one of the 10 files that are available to you to make your art on. So go to File and Open, and you guys are going to find in the For Students, Out, Media Art, Out, Land Claims folder, and just pick one of the 1 to 11 there available for you. I picked number 5, so the trick is we are going to be putting multiple layers of color and enhancements on this image, but we require the Polygonal Lasso tool to help Photoshop know where we want those enhancements and colors and etc. to go. So sometimes I find myself wondering about where people lived before we made the streets and before we gridded up our countryside, and what these sections that you're going to make, these little selections and areas, are going to form is what you imagine or where you imagine somebody lived before we came. And the way the Polygonal Lasso tool works is you just click and it begins a selection of a straight line. Once you click again, it lets you continue that, having dropped a new anchor point at which a new angle can be formed. So you can do lots of little clicks to create kind of curved areas, or you can make a long straight line where and this would form where you think somebody might have, I don't know, had either hunting territory or you know, a certain path that they used to collect water at, or you know, where their home was, or a traditional spot for gathering a particular kind of plant. So this would be available for us now if we wanted to brush something into that. That's possible. Of course, I've done a bad thing. I've painted right on top of layer 1. If I press Ctrl Z and make a new layer, it would be best to paint into that layer so that I can not be stuck with this blue pixel later on if I want to make a change. It'll be on layer 2 and be movable or erasable. The pixels will be on their own layer. Now, the Polygonal Lasso tool follows the same rules as the other lasso tools in regards to adding and subtracting from a selection. So if I'm not happy with the shape of this selection, I can hold down Alt and click once. I can release Alt now and form the shape that I want by subtracting this area here, and just circle around. Doesn't matter what happens up there, but I need to return to my starting point, and you'll see a little O appear when I get close enough, and then I click again and that area is removed. So if I'm content with this, we can move on with some effects. And by the way, if you wanted to add bits, you would hold down Shift. So clicking here, you can create an area where somebody might have been, and that's added to a selection. So there's several ways about going about how to add color and kind of texture and enhancement to the areas that have been already selected. One is, as before, using the brush tool, increasing the size of the brush with the right bracket tool, or decreasing with the left bracket. You can paint those areas in. Now, because they're on their own layer, we can adjust the opacity of that so that we can still partially see what's behind it. That's one way to do it. Another cool effect is by changing the layer style. The layer style, let me just deselect for a second here. The layer style, if you click on normal and start pressing the down key on your keyboard, it will cycle through the various types of layer styles you can have. This discusses the interaction of pixels from one layer to the layers below it. So burning darkens those pixels, so they kind of become a multiplication of each other. Darker color, lighten does nothing, screen lets a little bit through. Various effects can be achieved. So just cycle through that and you might get a neat kind of effect. You can also layer on top of the shapes you've already begun to create. So if I pretend that there used to be a production of wild rice in this area, I might have a large area for processing, and this might have been all lake. And coming back to my beginning point, I can make a new layer, fill that in with let's say a different color. It's hard to predict how colors will turn out if you will be using these effects, layer styles, or if you're doing opacity. But for the moment, just guess what color you're gonna think looks cool, and then you can modify it from there. So opacity will let us see partially through, and you'll begin to get a layered sort of effect. Layer 2, we might drop the opacity on that as well. So we're beginning to get a kind of a layered texture to this, various areas. And you can also add Control D to deselect. You can also add layer styles to that just to see what effects are available to you there. Let's say we're happy with that. One last way to make things look cool as you experiment with this Polygonal Lasso tool is by copying and pasting from layer 1, your original layer, into a new layer. So you're not just painting onto an empty layer, you're actually taking pixels from layer 1, pasting them into a new layer, which will be a layer 4, and modifying that layer. So let's go back to layer 1 to select some pixels to grab. Let's make another shape that does, remember you have to keep clicking where you want it to drop anchor points and return to your beginning. Let's say we want to keep that. You'll press Control C and immediately Control V, and it should paste that same shape right in place. You can see in layer 4 there's that lake bit. Using the Move tool, I can prove it to you that that same stuff is there, layered right on top of itself. Now, if you do make a mistake, press Control Z to have it go back to its beginning point. And we are going to try and enhance layer 4 now in a way we haven't done before. To enhance a layer, or a selected area on a layer, go up to the Enhance menu, Adjust Color, or Adjust Lighting. Adjust Lighting lets you do things like shadows and highlights, so anything that, if you wanted to lighten the dark parts, you'd be using this. If you wanted to darken areas that are very light, there's not a whole lot of highlight in there except this, but even that doesn't get too dark. And midtone contrast. Midtone is the halfway point between totally white and totally black. And lots of these pixels fall within that range. So midtone contrast will help boost the difference between the black and white. And I kind of like the way that kind of chalkiness gets popped up a little bit in the shape of this. So let's press OK to that one. We can continue to enhance through brightness and contrast. Brightness, contrast. We can enhance lighting further by doing levels. This represents how many pixels are black, how many pixels are totally white, how many pixels are right in between. So we can see that most of the pixels in this picture are about 75% gray if put into a grayscale, and you can move those, so making those be the newest black. All of those pixels that used to be 75% are now totally black. And if you wanted to make them totally white, you can drag them over, so all of those 75% gray pixels originally would be white now. And that's kind of a cool effect. I think I'm gonna work with that, even though it's a little heavy-handed with the vibrance or saturation, but let's press OK. To enhance color, you can adjust color, and there's many options here. As an example, you can replace a color that you see on layer 1, such as this beige, and the fuzziness refers to how, let's say, generous Photoshop will be when it's thinking whether these pixels next to it or this pixel over here is the same as that. So the fuzzier you make it, you'll notice the more of these pixels become considered to be the same as this. The less fuzzy is like, getting particular. It's just this kind of watery blue that I want. So let's grab this field, make it kind of just restricted to that field. Then we can change the hue of that, make it a little kind of maybe greenish. Saturation, we could boost it so that it's very strong. And lightness can go the range between totally dark and totally white. That's replacing color. If I wanted to take layer 2 and enhance that, I could go to adjust color and adjust the hue and saturation of it. Hue refers to the type of color, green, red, blue. Saturation is how dull or vibrant that is. Lightness, how dark or light. That's a measure of value. And we can press OK. Those are usually the most frequently used for me. You can adjust color curves as well. I find this a clunkier format than the professional kind of Photoshop version, because it won't let you drop your own anchors in here. But you can adjust things, make highlights or mid-tone brightness go up or down. I know it's not too detailed because there's not much going on pixel-wise in these shapes, but that's available for you too. So play around with enhancing, play around with layering, play around with the opacity, play around with layer styles. And hopefully you'll come up with a work that looks really great. And the last part is you're going to add some text. Using the text tool, or sorry, the horizontal type tool, you'll always hear me call it the text tool. You'll drag out a box in which you want the text to go. And we have a few phrases that you are supposed to enter, or that you have options of entering. You can also come up with your own, but get my approval first, because we just need to make sure that communication about this is both interesting and clear about our questions about land claims and ownership, and that's a good discussion to have. So one of them is, can I have it? As you're in the text tool, you can resize this box so that it's all on one line. This yellow I already chose. This is great. I'm going to use my move tool and resize this from a corner so I'm not squishing any of the text. The idea, can I have it, is I think an interesting one, because it's permission and pleasantry are involved in this question, and both are kind of a big problem with how things went down, or at least how things are perceived now. So some of the ways that we phrase these words, what text we choose, what typeface we choose, can change the meaning of the text itself. So try to choose well, and save your work. Save it, hand it in to me into the For Students in Media Art In folder. Assignment 5 is called Land Claims. Enjoy.